Hello dear students, welcome back again. Today we are going to take up the last part of chapter number 6, life processes. In the previous two videos we had discussed about the first two life processes that are included in this chapter. In today's video class we are going to take up the remaining two life processes that are transportation and excretion. So let us see one by one about this transportation and excretion. Transportation is the process of circulating different materials or the different food components all over our body. We can see this transportation in two different aspects. One, transportation in human beings, and another one, transportation in plants. So first, let us take up about the transportation in human beings. In human, the process of transportation is performed by the help of an organ system known as transportation system or circulatory system. The circulatory system in human being consists of three different parts. The first one is the heart, second one is the blood vessel, and the third one is the blood. So these three components cooperating with one another perform the process of transportation in human beings. Now let us see one by one these three parts of the transportation system in human beings. So this is one simple diagram of the human heart. The human heart is divided into four chambers, two in the upper portion and two in the lower portion. The two chambers in the upper portion, they are known as the atrium, while the other two chambers in the lower portion, they are known as the ventricle. So when you observe this diagram, you have to assume that this is the heart of a person standing in front of you, facing towards you. So the right side of that person will be considered as the right side of the heart, while the left side of the person will be considered as the left side of the heart. The right chamber of the atrium is known as the right atrium, while that of the left chamber is known as the left atrium. In case of the ventricle also, the one that is present on the right side, it is known as the right ventricle, while the one that is present on the left side, it is known as the left ventricle. These hearts, the atriums and the ventricles, they are connected with the blood vessels so that the blood from different parts of the body can be brought to the heart and the blood from the heart can be sent to different parts of the body. Now let us see how the blood is received by the heart and how it is sent to different parts of the body. The blood from different parts of the body is brought by a blood vessels known as vein to the right atrium. Different veins, before it reaches the heart, it joins together to form a single blood vessel, and that main single blood vessel we call it as a vena cava. So this vena cava is formed by joining different veins. From the right atrium, the blood is again passed to the right ventricle. So this blood that is received by the right atrium and that is sent to the right ventricle, it is known as deoxygenated blood. It is because this blood contains more amount of carbon dioxide and very less amount of oxygen. From this right ventricle, the deoxygenated blood will be sent to the lungs for oxygenation. Between the right atrium and the right ventricle, there is an opening which opens only in one direction. This opening is known as the valves. The valves prevents the flow back of the blood. In the lungs, the carbon dioxide from the blood will be removed out and oxygen will be added. This process is known as oxygenation. From the lungs, the oxygenated blood will be brought to the left atrium, and from the left atrium, it will be sent to the left ventricle. So this left chamber of the heart contains oxygenated blood. So in between this left atrium and the left ventricle also there is presence of the valves so that the flow back of the blood can be prevented. From the left ventricle, finally, the blood will be transferred to different parts of the body by the help of a blood vessels known as artery. So these arteries are also joined with the heart by the help of a single blood vessels known as aorta. So the aorta originates from the heart will be distributed into the small pipelines which are known as the arteries. So if we see carefully the structure of this heart, the walls of the atriums are thinner than the walls of the ventricle. It is because the atriums receive blood from different parts of the body which comes with a very low pressure. So in order to tolerate that low pressure, the atrium doesn't require a thick wall. But in case of the ventricle, as it is going to supply the blood to different parts of the body, they need to pass the blood at high pressure. So in order to develop that pressure, they require a thick wall. So these are about the heart. Now let's come to the next component of the transportation system in human. The next component of the transportation system in human is the blood vessels. Blood vessels are the pipeline through which the blood flows for the transportation of different materials inside the body. Depending upon from where to which part of the body the blood is transferred, the blood vessels are divided into two types. The first one is known as the artery, while then the second one is known as the veins. Arteries are the blood vessels that takes the blood from the heart to different parts of the body. Generally, these arteries carries oxygenated blood, except one artery which is known as the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery takes the deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs. Another property of artery is that the artery has thick wall. It is because the blood that is sent from the heart to different parts of the body flows at a very high pressure. So in order to tolerate the pressure developed by the blood, the arteries need a thick wall. In these arteries, there is no presence of valves. So these are the things that are related to the artery. Now let's come to the blood vessels, which is known as the veins. The veins are the type of blood vessels which brings the blood from different parts of the body to the heart. Generally, the veins carries deoxygenated blood, except pulmonary veins. The pulmonary veins brings the oxygenated blood from the lungs to the heart. Above that, the veins have thin wall. It is because the blood that is brought from different parts of the body flows with a low pressure. So in order to tolerate that low pressure, the veins doesn't require thick walls. Above that, the veins contains valves. These valves prevents the flow back of the blood again. Above these two blood vessels, there is another blood vessel which is known as the capillary. These capillaries are very small blood vessels whose wall is made up of one cell layer. These capillaries connect every cell that is present inside a human body with the artery and the veins. So these are the things that are related to the blood vessels. Now let us come to the last component of the human transportation system. The last component of the human transportation system is the blood. Blood is the liquid that is flowing inside our body which helps in the transportation of different materials. This blood is made up of two components. One is known as the liquid component. The liquid component is known as plasma. The main constituent of this plasma is water, and this creates a medium for the transportation of different materials, including the food materials as well as the waste materials, to circulate in our body. The second component of the blood is the solid component. The solid component is again further subdivided into three parts. One is RBC, second one is WBC, and the third one is platelets. RBC contains a red colored pigment known as hemoglobin. This hemoglobin has the ability to trap the oxygen. Because of this reason, the hemoglobin present in the RBC helps in the transportation of oxygen all over the body. The second component is the WBC. WBC is again made up of 5 different components. These 5 components perform a single function, that is, fighting the germs that enters inside our body which cause different types of diseases. The last component is the platelets. Platelets is the components of the blood which help in the clotting of the blood. Sometimes during the injury, the blood vessels got blocked and we suffer from bleeding. During that time, the blood usually comes out of the body. If excess amount of blood flows out of the body, then the pressure of the blood inside our body will reduce, which may harm our body. So the platelets close the blood and block the break that develops during the injury and prevents the bleeding process. So these are the things that are related to the blood. Now let us see how the process of circulation of the blood takes place inside the human body. Now let us see how the blood is circulated inside our body. The deoxygenated blood, that is, the blood containing carbon dioxide from different parts of the body, is brought to the right atrium chamber of the heart by the help of the veins. From the right atrium, the blood is transferred to the right ventricle. And from here, the blood is sent to the lungs for oxygenation by the help of a blood vessel known as pulmonary artery. After the oxygenation, the oxygenated blood from the lungs is transferred to the left atrium chamber of the heart by the help of a blood vessel known as pulmonary veins. From the left atrium again, the blood will be transferred to the left ventricle, from where the blood will be again circulated to different parts of the body by the help of the blood vessel known as artery. So during the circulation of the blood inside the human body, the blood enters twice inside the heart. One from the body to the right chambers of the heart, and again the second one is from the lungs to the left chamber of the heart. So as the blood enters twice in the heart, once in the right and another one in the left chamber of the heart in one single circulation, such type of circulation we call it as the double circulation. In the circulation of the blood inside the human body, the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood are separated and they are not allowed to mix. This is very important for the warm-blooded animals because the warm-blooded animals require large amount of energy, and the separation of the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood helps in increasing the efficiency of the supply of oxygen to the cells for performing respiration. So this respiration, if they get sufficient amount of oxygen, then the process of respiration will be performed effectively and they will be able to produce large amount of energy which is required by the body of the warm-blooded animals. So these warm-blooded animals, they have 4 chambers of the heart so that the blood, that is the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood, can be separated. But the cold-blooded animals, inside their body, this separation of the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood is not present. So these are about the circulation of the blood inside the human body. Now let us see one other component of transportation system in human beings, that is lymph. Lymph is a component of the transportation system in human being which is formed by the diffusion of plasma from the blood in between the cells of the human body. This lymph is generally found in between the cells that is present in the wall of the small intestine. Let us say this is the cut section of the wall of the small intestine. Here, this is the inner portion of the small intestine where the villi is present. This wall of the small intestine, they are richly supplied or richly connected with the blood vessels called capillaries, which are very small. When the small intestine absorbs the food materials, some of the food materials are very small and they are able to dissolve in water. Those small molecules of the food components, they can diffuse and they can pass through these capillaries. But the bigger size fat molecules, they are not able to pass through these capillaries. So this lymph, that is one component of the circulatory system, is formed in between the cells of the intestine. This is formed by diffusing the plasma from the blood from these capillaries. In between the cells, let us say these are the cells. In between the cells, the lymph will be forming a network which is known as the lymphatic system. In this lymphatic system, the fat molecules will be transported. And at regular interval, the lymph will be forming a bigger size capillaries which are known as lymphatic capillaries. And these lymphatic capillaries are bigger than the normal capillaries. Through these bigger size lymphatic capillaries, these fat molecules which are big in size that was not able to be passed through these capillaries will be passed and will be connected or will be supplied to the main blood vessels. So these are the things that are related to the transportation system in human beings. Now let us come to the transportation in plants. In plants, the transportation is performed by the help of 2 tube-like structures which are known as xylem and phloem. The xylem and phloem, they are collectively known as vascular tissue or vascular bundle. This xylem helps in the transportation of water and minerals from the root to different parts of the body, while that of the phloem helps in the transportation of food materials from the leaf to different parts of the body. The transportation of the xylem and the phloem, they are done by the help of either abrasion or by the help of energy. So let us see how xylem helps in the transportation of the water and the minerals from the root to different parts of the body, and how phloem transport the food from the leaf to different parts of the body. In the plant, the roots absorb the water and minerals from the soil, and it is transported to different parts of the body. Here at first, the roots, they absorb the minerals that is present inside the soil in the body of the plant. During that time, it creates a difference in the concentration of the water inside the roots of the plant and the soil. The soil contains more amount of water than that of the root. Because of that, the water from the soil starts diffusing inside the roots. In this time, if we compare the concentration of water in the root portion and the shoot portion of the plant, the root contains more amount of water than the shoot portion. Because of that reason, the water from the roots will start moving upward by the help of a pressure developed in the root, which is known as the root pressure. This root pressure alone is sufficient to supply water from the root portion to the shoot portion of the plant in the small plants. But in the tall plant, this root pressure alone is not sufficient. So in the tall plant, another process is performed, another pressure is developed from the shoot portion of the plant. That is known as the transpirational pull. Let us see what is this transpirational pull and how it is developed. During the process of transpiration, the plant from their leaf portion loses water in the form of vapor to the atmosphere. Because of this reason, the concentration of the water in the shoot portion reduces, which increases the difference in the concentration of water between the shoot and the root portion. Due to the difference that is created by the transpiration process, a pulling force is developed at the shoot portion of the plant, and that pulling force is known as the transpirational pull. So in case of the higher plant, both the transpirational pull and the root pressure are used to pull the water upward or to supply the water from the root portion to the shoot portion of the plant. So in this way, the xylem helps in the transportation of water and minerals by the help of root pressure and the transpirational pull inside the plant. Now let us see how the phloem transport the food materials from the leaf to different parts of the plant. In case of the phloem transport the food materials upward as well as downward. Because of this reason, a force is not utilized. Instead of that, the phloem utilizes the energy that is obtained during the breakdown of ATP to transport the food materials to different parts of the body from the leaves. In the phloem, the food that is prepared in the leaf will be transferred inside the phloem. Because of that, a concentration difference of water is developed between the cells that is present in the leaf and the phloem. Due to that reason, some amount of water from the cells in the leaf will diffuse inside the phloem, and the food materials will be transported by the phloem in the dissolved form. So these are the things about the transportation of materials inside the plant. Now let us come to the last life process, that is excretion. Excretion is the process of removing out the waste materials from the body of an organism. This process is very important because the waste materials that are generated inside the body of an organism, they are poisonous and toxic. And if it is stored inside the body for a long period of time, it will affect the functioning of other parts of the body. Because of this reason, the process of excretion is very important. In case of the unicellular organism, as the whole body of that organism is in contact with the surrounding, simple diffusion process is sufficient for performing the process of excretion. But in case of the multicellular organism, all the cells that are present in the body of that organism, as they are not in contact with the surrounding, the simple diffusion process is not sufficient for excreting out the waste material. Due to that reason, in case of the multicellular organism, A particular organ or an organ system is developed for the excretion of the waste materials. So now, let us see about the excretion that is performed inside the body of human being. In human being, the main excretion process is performed by an organ system known as the excretory system. The excretory system in human being consists of a pair of kidney, which are bean-cell structure, a pair of urethra that are a long tube which connect the kidney with the urinary bladder. The urinary bladder is a portion where the waste material in the form of urine is stored for a short duration of time. And finally, it is excreted out through an opening known as urethra. Inside the kidney, there are small fundamental excretory units which are known as nephron. This nephron is the part where the actual filtration of the blood to remove out the waste materials from the body is performed. Now, let us see about the structure of this nephron and let us see how the filtration of the waste material from the blood is performed. So this is a simple structure of nephron. The nephron has a cup-like structure which is known as the Bowman's capsule. This Bowman's capsule, inside it, there is presence of a perforated structure. Perforated means a substance which has lots of holes. This perforated structure that is present inside the Bowman's capsule, it is known as the glomerulus. The Bowman's capsule is connected with the blood vessel, one bringing the blood from different parts of the body which contains the waste material, and another one will carry the filtered blood to other parts of the body back again. Inside this Bowman's capsule, the waste material that is present in the blood will be filtered out with some amount of water. This filter or the waste containing water, we call it as a urine. This urine will pass to a highly coiled tube which is known as the tubular parts of the nephron. These tubular parts of the nephron, each and every part of it is connected with the blood vessels. Here, depending upon the amount of water that is left inside the body, some amount of water from the urine will be again reabsorbed back if the water that is present inside our body is very less. If the water that is present in our body is sufficient, then the reabsorption process will not take place. So, when it passes through these tubular parts of the nephron, depending upon the amount of water left inside the body, reabsorption of the water will take place and the unabsorbed urine will pass through another structure which is known as the collecting duct. In one kidney, there is presence of numerous numbers of collecting duct, and each and every collecting duct is again connected with numerous numbers of nephron. So in this way, the waste materials from the blood is excreted out by filtering in by the help of nephron. So this is about the excretion of the waste material inside a normal human body. But sometimes the function of the kidneys got failed, and during that time, this filtration process is not able to be performed by the kidney. During that time, we perform an artificial filtration process which we call it as dialysis. Let us see how this dialysis process is done. The process of dialysis is done to a person whose kidneys stop functioning, and it is done by the help of a machine known as dialysis machine or artificial kidney. This artificial kidney works on a principle known as dialysis. This machine contains a pipeline which runs inside it. The wall of this pipeline is made up of semi-permeable membrane, means a membrane which allows only some selective substance to pass through it. This tube has two outlets. At the tip of each outlet, there will be presence of needles which will be injected inside the body of a person whose kidneys stop functioning. In one of these outlets, one will be having a pump which will draw out the blood from the body of a person. Inside this machine, a liquid will be used which is known as dialyzing solution. The dialysis solution has the same composition as that of the plasma of the blood, but it will not contain the protein and minerals along with the waste material. So, from that outlet which contains the pump, the blood will be drawn from the body of the person and it will be flowing inside this machine through this tube. As there is a difference in concentration of the waste material in the blood flowing in this tube and the dialyzing solution, the waste material from the blood will pass through this tube and it will mix with the dialyzing solution. And after the filtration out of the waste material, the purified blood will be again injected inside the body of the patient. During this time, the dialysis solution is replaced continuously so that the difference in the concentration of the waste material between the solution and the blood can be maintained. So this is how the dialysis process is done. Now we come to the end of the excretion of the waste materials in human beings. Now let's come to the excretion of waste materials by the plant. In plants, there is no proper organ or parts by which the process of excretion can be performed. Plants perform the process of excretion by the help of different parts of their body. In case of the gaseous waste, that is oxygen, for the plant, it will be excreted out through the stomata present on the leaves. Most of the waste materials are deposited in the old leaves. And these leaves, when it becomes dry and fall off, the waste material also will get excreted out of the body. In some cases, some of the waste materials are deposited inside the old cells. And it will form resins and gums. Some of the waste materials are deposited in the bark of the plant. This bark actually is the outer covering, which are made up of dead cells. In those dead cells, the waste materials will be deposited, and when the bark falls off from the body of the plant, then the waste materials will be excreted out of the body. So in this way, the plants excrete out the waste materials by different means. So with this, we come to the end of this chapter. In the next video class, we will take up a new chapter. So for today, let us wind up here, dear students. Thank you.